what we're going to kick off with is kind of an overview of the athlete life cycle. And as most of you know, once they enter the CT system, we can keep them through, and we have offerings all the way across the board from the discovery all the way through the celebration. And so what I'm going to touch on today is this is a new presentation we've got that we'll be able to work with you to present to your RDs, your event directors, as well as to yourselves and your staff to be able to show them what's going on. So we're going to start with the new name, obviously Athlinks Services. This is where we're headed. Obviously, we're not going to lose the ChronoTrack name. You are staying ChronoTrack timers. But as you've seen in the emails, the new website is coming out. And what we're trying to do is use this to show the consumers recognize as Athlinks, and that's the name that they recognize. Most of you are ChronoTrack timers, you know the name ChronoTrack, but the athlete recognizes Athlinks. So we're moving to that. So starting with the Discover. Oh, you've got this set up a little bit. Do you have this actually on the screen that I can see?
That just goes to background. We can go through a couple more times so we get this covered.
Okay. All right, starting with the discovery life cycle. With the new revamped Athlinks page, thanks to Dolan and his team, the athlete can go in and do a very dynamic search for the events. So they can search by type of event, date of the event, area of the event, and search for the events. Obviously, they can see all the old results. So this is beginning to pull all of the information and compile all of the data together that Athlinks has always looked for, and now we're pulling it into the ChronoTrack name. Within the Athlinks platform, we've got the landing pages. If you have not started using these, I would highly suggest you do. One of the big benefits of this is it essentially acts like a mini web page. For most of you, a lot of your races are that 500 to 1,000 person event that may have a Facebook page, may have a website, but it's not dynamically built out and doesn't necessarily have all the information. We now give you the opportunity within this, and it's a much cleaner, much nicer looking page than just going right to the registration. You're giving them pictures, you're giving them past year's results, all their social media links can be on there as well. How many of you are actively setting up all the ELPs for your, I'm just curious by show of hands, how many of you are using ELPs for all your events? Okay, this would be something I would highly suggest because it's a much better landing for the hyperlinks that you use on your, especially if you're coming from your website, because it's going to increase the use of the Athlinks brand name. Obviously, it's got the register button. If they are using another registration platform, which we hope they aren't, that would be going to that. Takes them right into the registration platform. In the next section of the discovery, the new Athlinks app was launched a few weeks ago. Thank you very much to Dolan and Joel and that whole team. So we've now got the Athlinks, the athlete-facing app, where they can start building their profiles. And if they start building their profiles, we now can market to them a little bit better. And so within the marketing, you've got the athlete profile, where we're going to be able to do some small advertising. If I'm not mistaken, Dolan, no advertising will appear on a race page, correct? So there won't be any conflict with a specific race and a sponsor. After this week, okay.
After this week for events that are claimed. So ChronoTrack managed event landing pages, et cetera, within our network will not show advertising other than the sponsor logos that you'll be able to upload yourself. So you'll be able to put the events sponsors on those pages as advertisements. Out of network events, we'll still continue to advertise on.
That's only iOS, right?
What's that?
That's only on Apple, right?
Until next. So the app comes out on Android next week. The race day app itself is
Right.
Is both.
And is that the ads will come off of the individual result pages as well?
Yep. Yep. So within the event result page, or the ERP, the event landing page, and the IRP, or the individual result page, those ads will be controlled by you for events that you control.
I brought that up because I know there was a couple had concerns that races had already expressed concern. We also have the Athlinks blog and the Athlinks newsletter. And as we grow the Athlinks database, which we hope you can partner with us on in getting the athletes to claim it, the more Athlinks members we have, the more powerful that newsletter becomes and the more exposure we can get to your races. Social promotion, for those of you that are using ChronoTrack, we can create it creates the automatic referral. So you can track the referrals back, and the races can start offering incentives for people doing that organic recommendation to the races.
Can I ask if you
Yes.
have in your timeline a plan to actually give incentives related to future registration for these referrals? So for example, if I successfully refer 5 people to the race in which I am currently registered, can you go back and take $5 off my original cost of entry as a bonus to me? Now I know I can download all these lists, but that actual reward process is still manual at my end.
Let Troy answer that.
It is on the roadmap. We're playing with some different things right now between a financial incentive, a registration credit, or some other things at a broader scope. So there's some easy ways that we can get some wins off of this, which we'll start with, and then there's a longer term vision around kind of an Athlinks Miles program type of thing.
We thought about maybe we might have even the first round of that. I would say it's because of things like all these referrals that we're doing with companies, your very incentive is absolutely key
Yeah.
to pushing.
Yep, it's on our immediate roadmap. We'll talk a little bit about it maybe at some point today in the registration side of things. So if it doesn't get addressed completely by the end of the day, we'll certainly jump in and address it. It's definitely something we're thinking through right now.
Moving forward through the athlete profile, now you get into the registration platform. Much cleaner look, fully branded. This is where you can start engaging your sponsors with your athletes. So this is where it starts becoming more powerful, using the Athlinks registration platform to bring what makes the race money. So we all know that just the race is not where they make their money, it's with the sponsors. So being able to engage the sponsors directly with the athletes in a much bigger way. The single sign-on process for those of you that have Athlinks profiles, and I would hope that you all do at this point. The beauty of this is, if they're online, they type in if they're signed in, they type in their name. 2/3 of the questions are already answered. And we did a study a couple months ago where we found that once you hit from 22 to 23 questions that the athlete has to answer, the dropout rate and the card abandonment jumps from 14% to 22 or 23%. So it's huge that having that single sign-in process speeds up keeps the dropout rate from going up and keeps the athletes registering. Yes, Brad?
Is there a plan to eventually go to an Amazon one-click register?
That's what the Athlinks sign-in
Well,
is they'll...
Right, but it's,
Yeah, so we
because right now they still got to put in credit card and all that.
Yep.
Where I'm saying it's like the Amazon where it's like one-click ship. Like I'm in.
Yeah, so the email that we sent out regarding Adyen, so we didn't want to move off of Stripe. Stripe deprecated some functionality there. We were kind of forced into the move. It's a good move long-term for us, but we were going down the path of single sign-on, card on file, Amazon one-click style. We had to take a step back and rebuild some of that stuff, but it's also on the roadmap for definite immediate work.
So I think the biggest thing we're doing right now is studying how to do that. So some of the initial findings are, for an average race, we might have 10 questions that a typical race asks, especially half marathon plus, in their reg path that we think we can just completely eliminate. So how many full marathons have you done in the past? What's your expected finish time? What's your best pace you've ever done? Blah, blah. How many half marathons have you done in the past 2 years? We don't need to ask those questions anymore. We have that data via Athlinks and via Smart Corral. So step one will just be, I think, not going to single click, but just eliminating a lot of waste that's out there today. Then in addition to that, we started studying user behavior within a reg path. So we know that abandonment of a registration increases by like 20% once you ask more than 26 questions within a reg path. Like if 25 or less, it's like 10, 15% kind of average. As soon as you get above 26, people just bail on the reg at some point because they just get fatigued with it. So we want to attack that. Again, with 10, 11 questions, we can actually just eliminate from the reg path. And then on top of that, we studied like 5 years worth across all events, so thousands and thousands of events. We found that 90% of events have about 18 core questions that they all ask. Everybody asks a slightly different version of the same question. And as we march towards Express Reg, I think the first version will be, if we can bake those 18 into an Athlinks profile, you're just clicking register, and those 18 are just done. It's the vast majority of what the race director needs anyway. And then if there are 4, 5, 6 unique custom questions, we can almost take a ticketing kind of approach where you buy the entry first and then come back and complete reg. So all of that is kind of happening at once. We're exploring it, studying it from a few different angles, but so far the initial findings are pretty damn interesting.
That includes stuff like, hey, you left something in your shopping cart without us having to go through that report
Yeah.
and then contacting them?
I think the flow will be something like, congratulations, you're in. Now click here to complete your registration, and if we miss them there, then maybe we get them at walk up or whatever on race day. But that's part of what we're digging into now.
I have to interject. We have 45 people joining on the live stream right now, so when you ask them questions, can you use this, please?
Or we can repeat it after you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just have you just repeat the question.
All right. Once we get past a single sign-in, now we're getting into teams, series, and there's been a number of implementations here recently. Chelsea and her team are working on doing some major upgrades that some have come out and some are in the next sprint and going in further into Q3. There are a number of changes coming up. But obviously, with the Athlinks profiles and using ChronoTrack registration, we're able to simplify registration, and you don't have those errors of moving data back and forth. Once they're in the system, you never have to worry about it, and it should minimize issues with any data. Again, as I talked about earlier, the fully brandable registration platforms, and we now also have the customized registration entry points. So if you've got a race that has multiple sponsors that they want to have their own little registration path, you can do a fully branded registration path that all the data feeds directly into your event without you having to manipulate custom questions to get it all to feed in. It feeds directly into the proper race, but it looks like that sponsor is being treated like they should be, the very special person that they are. A lot of the other features that we have, and some of you are probably familiar with these, but in the last year, because of some of the events we've taken on, we've added lotteries, we've added the custom registration platform. Those two major things came from taking on Peachtree, the membership, T-shirt inventory control, and we also have now inventory control on custom questions, which was not there a year ago, so a lot of these innovations have come within the last year. The social promotion tools, a lot more opportunity to get those social links that the athletes care about, because as we know, more and more it's moving into the experience of the event versus the competition of the event. And so the more we can get those experiential pieces front and forward, the better off the people are going to like the platform. Automated confirmation emails for those of you that are using the platform. Within our system, you can actually not only have the automated confirmation emails with more information, but you can customize it by race. So if you have just a donation question where you want to ask them just to donate, or a fun walk, or the actual packet pickup for the timed events, you can customize those confirmation emails within an event for each separate race choice that you have. On-site registration. This is where the big stuff happens. Most of you know we have dynamic bib assignment, but now thanks to our team working on launch, you can now do it completely offline. So if you've got a very large race that has a lot of pre-registered runners, you can speed up that process because you're working now on a local network, and it's the same concept. It's a little more streamlined, and that will be touched on later. Michael Kilberg is going to be talking about that product, and so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but know that we now have an offline process. I personally was at the TD Bike New York event with Big River, and we checked in 36,000 people in 2 days, and I was blown away by how quickly it went. And it was a simple walk up, scan the barcode, their information popped up, hand them the bib, and they were running like 6 different bib colors, and the system was extremely easy to use. And from that, the team brought back probably about 10 pages worth of notes and made some additional upgrades. But again, Michael's going to talk about that later. As we talked, our whole system is just very clean and simple. We've taken a lot of the extra stuff apart. I know some people look at it as a detriment. We look at it as very positive because there's less visual disruption to the athlete. Moving into our training, this is where the lifetime connection becomes very big, and the Athlinks blog. Within training, we've got the race day app where we can show that where you can actually use that for training. We've got a couple timers that are actually creating all of the training runs prior to in a race day app. So they're actually creating a ChronoTrack event and using the race day app so people can actually track themselves and see how they're improving over the course before the race day. We've got the Athlinks blog, the newsletter, so a number of pieces that are going out. Within the race day app, we also have videos that the athletes can use, and I believe Lifetime is going to be increasing the number of training videos within the race day app, and that's something that, don't think of it as race day, think of it as months out to start engaging again the consumer with the race and with the sponsors. The race day app, as I talked about, you've got maps. The consumer can begin tracking themselves and building their database of how they're doing along that course. Now we get to race day. This is where the fun begins. This is where you guys really begin to shine. With the race day app, we now have, you can engage the consumer starting months out with training information. It's got push notifications, and we're going to go through just some of this real quick. The interactive maps, within the course map, you're able to create interactive points on the course. So you'll be able to go into a map, a JPEG, draw sections on the map, a little highlight box, and put in things like the sponsor who is sponsoring that stop. Stop here for a super scenic picture on this custom bridge. And you can put in all the information, and the athlete, that is available offline. So if the athlete is traveling to the race, they'll be able to actually walk through the race while they're sitting on the airplane, because that's fully downloaded within the app. We also have that available for the expo, or you could do a customized interactive map for the race site, so they know where everything is on race day. We do push notifications. So this is again where the engagement becomes with the sponsors. This goes right to their phone like a text message, and you can have pictures and video incorporated into that. So you can start sending special offers from the race or special offers from some of the race sponsors right to the athlete, engaging them months before. On race day, I personally used this for a race up in Pittsburgh where we actually had it programmed out, and you can set up the announcements to go out at specific times. So we had it programmed out 10 minutes before the race, 5 minutes before the race, when the awards were going to be for each race, where the awards were, and this is where you start getting the cross promotion, because what we did in the push notifications was we said, hey, go to the interactive map, find booth number 304, that's where we're doing the sponsors, that's where we're doing the awards. And it pushed them right to that sponsor's video and got them to engage in a much better way. GPS tracking for the athletes, where the athlete can track themselves, as well as spectators can track the athletes. This is what I talked about earlier, the video library. We've got videos that are uploaded from Lifetime, as well as the event can upload their own videos and basically mini commercials or anything they want to do. So if they want to do the race director standing up there talking about awards, I know Brad and his partner Adam have done some really cool stuff for the what's the paddle one? Whiskey Daddle. They did a couple of series of kind of goofy videos, but it got the point across to the athletes. Branded photos, again, engaging that customer with the sponsors. Yes?
All right, back to the tracking, the athlete tracking around the course. Is that through RaceJoy, or is that a different?
This is our app. This is Athlinks Race Day app. The question was, is the tracking through RaceJoy? This is our own branded app. This is Athlinks Race Day app. And so it is GPS tracking through the phone. And there is also, and I don't want to speak out of turn, Nick, you would know this, that we now have the, he'll address it later on all the tracking issues. So we'll leave that to Nick. If you're using CT Live, another benefit is the roster flows directly into the app. And so you don't need to do any uploading and downloading into the app. If you're in CT registration, it flows directly in, and the athletes, as soon as the bibs are assigned, can start claiming themselves, and the spectators can start claiming the athletes.
Is that recent development, or has that always been like that?
That's probably about 2 months ago, I think. So it was in place for the Hospital Hill. Sponsor info. So within our Race Day app, obviously we have the branded photos, but within CT we also have the ability to brand photos as well. So if you haven't taken advantage of that for the photography and the media section, we can do branded photography within there. Obviously, we're timing a lot of the biggest races. Thank you very much to our timer teams, because it's you guys It's the quality of your timing that we're having these. It's not just our technology, but the quality of our timers as well. But we now have 19 of the top 25, and I believe the sales team, we looked at 70 of the top 100 races in the United States are timed by ChronoTrack timers. So thank you very much for that. Hardware, obviously you know all this. I'm actually not going to, I'm going to kind of blow through this because the hardware guys are going to talk a little bit later. But the introduction of the Pro 2 this year, we now have, I believe it's close to 180, 190 Pro 2s in the field now, actively working. The mini system hasn't changed a whole lot. There are some innovations coming on that. Again, the hardware guys are going to talk about that. Our active system is being used. Obviously, Spartan Race is tremendously using that all over the world. And then matless flashpoints, if for any of you who are in New York, every one of the split points on the course were done with just flashpoints, and it was the largest amount of data ever collected at an event. And I believe I'm not going to say the number, but I know it was minuscule for the number of missed reads. With 51,000 runners, over 88 timing points, Tom Kelly from New York Roadrunners was absolutely ecstatic, and they just used flashpoints. So we've proven that that matless split point definitely works even on a large scale race. We're just going to skip through this. I said the hardware guys are going to talk about this later. It was, okay, Troy just told me it was only 5 timing corrections in all of New York with 51,000 athletes. So when people question why you're with ChronoTrack timer, you can use that stat to say this is how good we are. Sorry, there's no way to. So the new middleware, and again, they're going to talk about, Micah and his team are going to talk about this. The Fusion middleware is coming. They're in beta testing, a closed beta right now, and they want to release that sometime in Q3. And again, they're going to talk about that a little bit later, but this is going to give you the ability to control everything. So if you don't want to get up on Saturday morning early, you can sit in your pajamas and send your timers out, and then you can make sure they're doing everything correctly once you get up and get your coffee. Launch product, again, Michael Kilberg is going to touch on that. Scoring, Nick has a boatload of changes to talk about later that are going to upgrade that. Our Smart Corral system, this is where the Athlinks tie-in becomes tremendous, because the more data we have coming into the system, the more we can help your races and help you plan your races better. With the Smart Corral, we're going to be able to verify all the information that your athletes are telling the races as far as their pace times and assign corrals in a much more scientific manner rather than having somebody have to go back and see if their performance from 20 years ago is the one that they're using when they say that they ran a 2:10 marathon. Okay, you ran that 1968. It's now it's now 2000 something. The demographic profile, we'll be able to help with the Athlinks newsletter. We're going to be able to target your race and the demographics. So if they want to target a specific area, we're going to be able to target. If they want to say 25-year-old to 45-year-old females that have run a marathon faster than 4 hours, we're going to be able to target that demographic in specific regions. So this is where the Athlinks data and our entire platform really becomes a powerful tool for you and for your events. Within this, we can pull up the athletes' specific information. We can show their self-time, how accurate they were, and what we found is, I believe the number was something like 30 to 35% of the guys lie, and only about 10 to 15% of the women lie about their times, but now we can prove that. And so the athlete setup for the corrals becomes much better. We can also show the races, we can show competitive analysis. So now we're talking about how many athletes have run which race. So if they're wondering why they're losing or where they're losing athletes to, we can show what races all of their athletes have been running over a certain amount of time. So now you can start helping that race maybe regain some ground because they can figure out why they're losing athletes or where they're losing them to. We can show, which one is this? So we can show, this is the competitive analysis where we can show exactly how many athletes, how many have run it, how many times they've run it, and maybe which areas they're going to. But they can also, conversely, they can also use this to maybe find another race to co-market with. So it's not just about finding where they're losing athletes, but maybe how can they market better, what are their cooperative races. Live race services, we've got the live results, and with the new Athlinks, much better athlete experience. The Athlinks Live results, I know a number of you have used them with tremendous success in the last few weeks. Much better look than the old CT widget and much more mobile friendly. As we move into the media, they're going to be able to download the media much easier. Athlete tracking, as we talked about earlier with the Race Day app. And the media services, Sean's going to talk about this later. You've got everything from doing it all yourself with just the basic photos and videos to doing a combination of we provide some of the services to Sean and his team can do a full-blown walkout of everything that the race wants. So you don't have to get involved. The race doesn't really have to do anything. Sean and his team take over the whole platform. And then the last piece, and this is where Athlinks really shines, is the celebration. So you've got your mobile and your on-site. So we still have the CT widget or the CT on-site kiosks, but now you can have them programmed to be have their phones ahead of time to do the CT, the Athlinks Live results. Sponsor branded and shareable. That's what we want to get. We want to show the race that we can bring them value with our results with their sponsors, because bottom line is their sponsors are only going to come back if they see a benefit to working with that race. And with the Athlinks platform, we can now do that, and we're moving to a point that the data and the metrics will be there as well. The social space is the key. As I said earlier, it's now more about the experience than it is about the competitiveness. And so the more social opportunities we give the athletes to share their results and get that brand name out there, the more powerful you become to that race. And that's it in a nutshell. Any questions besides the ones we had earlier?
One quick comment before we leave this. So the version of this that Kevin just went through kind of cycled through each one of those modules. This presentation itself is for you. So this isn't PowerPoint, this isn't PDF, this is a format called Prezi, which is totally dynamic. So we cycle through each one of those little modules. You do not have to do that. This tool is for you so that you can go to your race directors, your prospects, or whomever, and if they're only interested in timing, you can just focus on timing. Just reg. You can do any or all components of it. So the tool itself is for you as well, and Alyssa is going to be pushing that out to everybody via a link after the conference today.
Is it co-brandable?
Brad just asked, is it co-brandable? I don't believe that is, no, at this point, this presentation will not be co-brandable.
What would you want on there? Shazam
Like,
plus?
yeah, my logo or what, yeah.
Okay, so the link that you'll get that's kind of blocked, you can't edit it, but we could make those edits and send you your own version of it.
Okay, so the answer to that question is we can edit it and then send it out to you. Right, and who's up next? Any other questions?